So first of all, I've missed you guys. Last couple of weeks, I've had a few things going on. So I guess the good news to that is last week I spent about 2.5 hours in a counseling session with my daughter as we process some of this world of addiction in my own life. So as difficult as that was, super full of gratitude today that she feels safe enough to do it. So there is hope at the end of this addiction tunnel, I think, for families, as long as we stay the course. But I've missed you, and I'm so grateful to be here today. As some of you, I don't know if Jason told you last week, but his baby's birthday is today. And so he is spending the day on the mountain with his, I think they're fives. Are they five today? It's crazy how time flies. But so he won't be here, but my beloved friends, Bree and Jeff, are here today to share with you guys this journey of their own addiction story and healing. And I just want to give them a little introduction. So for those of you that don't know Jeff, he's the admissions director at Brick House Recovery. I think when I sat in my inpatient program in Boise, and I decided to try this thing called outpatient out and see if I could heal from this disease, Jeff is the one that met me. I can just vividly remember sitting at a table with him and him asking me the question, what am I willing to do to be sober and to be in recovery? And I told him anything at that moment. And I've reflected on that time several times in the last 4 years, questioning myself, am I still today willing to do whatever it takes to be sober? Jeff and I have had the pleasure of traveling to a lot of places to talk to a lot of people, and the friendship and the relationship that I have with Jeff is just something that I hold very dear in my heart. And his beautiful wife, there is a weird glare in my office right now. His beautiful wife, I have also got to know, and I just, the people that you meet along the way is just a gift really from God, and their relationship and Bree's relationship that I have with Bree as well is just, I'm so grateful for. She is now our lab collector in Boise, so we get to work super close with her as well. And they have a story of pain and redemption and love and never quitting and working through these relationships that so many of you are aware of with loved ones that are addicts. And some of us have kids that are addicts. Some of us have spouses that are addicts. But their story, I think, really is just one of love and surrender and continued efforts to work through the traumas and the difficulties of healing in these relationships. And so Jason asked them to be here today to just share their story together, which I think is really cool. And I'm going to pass it over to him and her. And if at the end you guys have questions or we can process their story, I would love to do that. But for now, I'm going to pass it to Jeff and Bree.
Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Can we share our screen? Mine says share screen.
Well, you'll share what's on your computer if you do that. So,
okay.
Yeah. So as Jen mentioned, I'm the admissions director with Brick House Recovery. I have been on staff for coming up on 5 years now. So getting to work right alongside Jason over the last almost 5 years has been just, I can't even tell you, I can't put into words what a blessing that's been. Jason is also the person who really helped change the course of my life, really. So I was a client at Brick House before I was a staff member. And I remember when I was at my low point, I struggled with drugs and alcohol since I was a teenager. Growing up, alcohol particularly was pretty common within my family, especially my mom's side of the family. It's just what kind of everybody did, So I grew up thinking it was quite normal. And, as a young teenager getting into high school, like so many kids do, I started experimenting with, different things, marijuana, and then into other substances. And then in my early 20s, the social circle that I had was really not conducive to the street drugs, but alcohol was very accepted because that's in society, it's very socially acceptable. So I easily made the transition to drinking on a pretty regular basis, and I really didn't see any issues with it. I wasn't losing my job. I wasn't homeless. I wasn't physically abusive or aggressive. I just, like so many people, I just thought I was having a good time, and but it didn't take long before it turned into a problem. So, but when I had got to my dark space, I had tried multiple times to stop on my own, multiple attempts from Bree to pressure me to stop. The whole control thing was in full effect, and I could tell that it was causing problems within our marriage. But and I did for a while. I would stop. I would finally buckle under the constant nagging, for lack of better words. Just the unhappiness in the relationship. I would say, okay, all right, I'll quit. And so I would for a little while, but every time I did, I was miserable. Some of you may have heard the term, dry drunk, and that's exactly what I was. I mean, I may have been sober for a time, but I was a miserable guy, and I wasn't a good guy to be around either. So, obviously that didn't last. I had, as time went on, the more attempts that I tried, I got a little bit more serious each time, but I really never really wanted it for myself. It was really just an effort to really get her off my back. I didn't want to hear it anymore. And I was, so it felt very forced, and it was not something that was my decision, but I tried. And I went to several AA meetings, and would almost always drink, sometimes immediately after the meeting, sometimes not for a week, or I think once or twice I made it 30 or 60 days, but I always went back every time. Those times I remember I would kind of wait, and I was always checking the temperature of her. And so I was always going, okay, is it safe yet? Is it safe yet? Is it safe yet? And I was just waiting. I was just waiting for things to calm down, for the anger and the resentments to tone down, at least it seemed, to the point where I was getting comfortable again. And then I'd go, okay, now I can do it. And I would just pick it right back up. So it went on like that for a long time. But we'll talk more about our story. But when I met Jason, I was truly at the lowest point in my life, I feel, and it was a dark time for me. And so I had started reaching out for help after multiple failed attempts on my own. Didn't know anything about treatment. Never tried it, never done it. I didn't know inpatient versus outpatient. Like, I really didn't know. And I had called the facility that was really the best at marketing in our area. So that was the only one I had heard about. And I had called them. And growing up, for me, faith was a part of my life. I did not grow up in a religious home. My mom's Catholic, or her mom was Catholic, but none of the family was very strict in their religion. I mean, it was real loose, but they always talked about God. So I can remember from being a little kid, like, I always had a belief in God and a higher power. And so when I was at my bottom, I thought, well, if I'm going to have any chance at this, like, to me, I know that God has to be some part of this. And I didn't know what that was going to look like, but I had said that on the phone to the gentleman that I reached out to. I called, and, sadly, in the industry of treatment, the industry does have a black eye, because there are a lot of programs out there that are happy to take your money to treat your loved one, and we'll see on the next relapse, the next go around. And I'm sure some of you on this call have probably felt that on your pocketbooks and have experienced that. And it's really sad. Not all centers are that way, but there's a lot of them that way. And so, here's someone who's in clear desperation, ready to get help, that has health insurance that can pay for it. And instead of the person on the phone saying, yep, we can help you, come on in, we'll get you taken care of and get you feeling stable again. And, maybe you'll make it, maybe you won't, but you got insurance, so let's do it. That's not what happened. Instead, when I talked about asking, do you have a faith-based program? He paused and he said, let me give you a phone number. And he had given me Jason's cell phone number. And at this time, the program that he and his wife Bryn had started in Idaho it was brand new. I mean, no one had heard of it. It was in its stages of infancy. So, there was, I don't know how else I would have ever heard about him or found him, but to me, that was absolutely a divine connection. And so I had met with Jason 2 days later. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was talking to somebody who could understand my experiences, but who also heard me really spill my guts and not judge me, because I felt like the lowest scum on the planet at that point. And not only did he not judge me, but he had given me some hope that there was a way out of this. So, I thought that, I had a lot of fear, a lot of doubt. I didn't know if I could do it, but I was willing to try. And I ended up committing to the program, and by the grace of God, I stuck with it. And I'll be honest, in the beginning of that was my whole motivation was an attempt to save my marriage. There was a part of me that wanted to be sober, but I was terrified of being sober. That's all I knew. I couldn't imagine a life without some substance being a part of that. I didn't know how I would ever enjoy anything again. Drugs and alcohol in the brain, if you guys have seen the video Pleasure Unwoven, or kind of have an understanding of addiction and the disease model of the brain, someone who's been using substances for a long time, the senses are dulled. And so it's hard to experience any joyful emotion in regular everyday things, like taking a hike or taking a walk on the beach or going to, an amusement park, things that other people enjoy, with immense joy, but not so for the alcoholic or the person who's been constantly getting huge shots and increases of dopamine in the brain. And so, I really couldn't see how I could ever have fun or enjoy life. But so there was a big part of me that had a lot of reservations, even when I was at my bottom. It was a terrifying thing, but I thought, if I don't do this, then we will not make it for sure. She will be gone. I can't believe she's not gone already. I don't know how that's possible, but I'm going to try. And I stuck with it. And, the relationship did not change. And I'll let her speak more to that, but I just share that part of my story with you guys to give you an idea of some of the background of where we were, and kind of what's happened since. So I ended up graduating the Brick House program successfully without relapse by the grace of God. I come from a sales background career. I did that all of my adult life. So that's what I knew. So and I continue to do that throughout my treatment program. And that brought us some financial success. And that's really where I found all my self-worth, was being able to provide financially and being prideful in my work ethic and my drive. And, because I really felt terrible inside about myself in every other aspect. So that was the one thing that I clung to, that I felt like gave me some sense of worth. So I worked at that with, like, my life depended on it, And so after graduating the program, it didn't take very long into sobriety, where I realized that I wasn't feeling any joy or happiness in this career path, that it was always taking me away from the family, and I was never around. And it didn't take long before she said, hey, I'm glad that you're sober, but I feel like a single mom raising these kids. You're never home, and this isn't working for me. And so I thought, okay, well, now what do I do? Now here's another problem. I took away the alcohol, but now we have this issue. And that was the beginning of really recognizing that although alcohol was the big glaring defect in the room, it wasn't the core of everything. There was so much more, but we didn't discover that until, first I have to get stable and get sober so that we can work through one step at a time. So that was the next step, was recognizing that career was not serving us or the relationship. And I started conversations with Jason about that. And I said, I'm sober. at this point, I think it was about a year into sobriety. I said, I'm still sober, but I'm struggling. I'm not happy. This is taking a toll on the relationship. And, I really would love to be able to help people like you do. How would one go about that? And I didn't have a college degree to be a clinician. And I thought, well, that, long shot, that's never going to happen. You've got to have certain licensure and that sort of thing. But there are roles in the recovery world, that entry level roles, that could be a possibility. So I thought, why not try? So we started talking, and I'll tell you this: in order to become an employee with Brickhouse, you have to endure probably, and I'm not exaggerating, 6 to 7 interviews. This is a process that takes months. Jason and the team at Brickhouse is very selective and very protective over the culture. And you could be a master's level PhD counselor with 20 years experience, and it does not mean that you will have a job at Brickhouse. You've got to be the right fit, because we really protect what are our core values, and if that doesn't match up, then it's just not going to work, and it really doesn't matter all the rest. So that's one thing I love about him. But so he knew me really well. I mean, we had a good friendship. I went through the whole program, but it was no different from my experience as far as onboarding as an employee. But we really had a chance to talk, and he said, after about 4 months, he said, "There's an opportunity for you, but it's going to require some sacrifice on your end. I mean, I can't pay you anything that what you're used to. For years we were doing pretty well, and we had to make a decision." And he said, "Tell me what you guys need, and then we'll see if we can make it work." So I remember coming home and having a conversation with Bree and saying, "Okay, like let's really cut out all the fat, and can we really simplify? What do we need to just be okay, just to make it?" So we figured that out. I went back to him, and he said, "Okay, I think we can do that." So we made a big decision. One thing I will say about Bree is that regardless of all of the struggles throughout the years, by the way, we've been married almost, this year will be 17 years. And she's been with me through all of it. So she's always supported me in everything I have ever done. And I just can't thank her enough for that. But so she said, "We'll figure it out." So we sold the toys, we sold the new truck. I mean, we really just stripped away our lives so that I could do this. And so anyway, that's how it all started for me, as a working in this industry. So, and then of course, over the years, I mean, I've experienced countless miracles and countless hardship too. I mean, this is heavy work. We've lost some clients. It's not easy to call a family member and there are no words to say, "I'm sorry that, you lost your loved one." I mean, that's the reality of what we're dealing with. But it's also, there's no comparison to sitting in a graduation ceremony and listening to a 13-year-old girl say, "Thanks for giving me my father back." I mean, talk about meaningful. So anyway, I'll shut up now, and I want to give Bree an opportunity to kind of really speak to her experience of what it was like as a on the other side of me and everything I've gone through, and what are some of the things that really were effective in trying to help me the right way, and what wasn't, and kind of, where we were and what it's like today. So, and I'll say this too, this is, if anything else, I hope you guys hear this. We would not be having this meeting today without God. We would not be married. None of our story would be remotely possible if it wasn't for a higher power, our God. And so I think that has been the glue that really held us together through hell and through the hardest things that I think any couple could ever go through, and somehow make it. So thanks for listening, and then I'll pass it to Bree.
Well, hi guys. First, I just want to say I commend you all for being on this call. You are my people. You're the people that show up and are hungry, and I'm a hungry person. I wanna fill my soul with tools, and there's so much out there, and so cool. It's so cool that you're on this call. And Jen, thank you for that introduction. It feels such a privilege to be here and just get to know you on a different level. And I cherish our friendship, and I just can't wait for it to grow more. And Jeff, I'm the personality out of us two. I'm more nervous, being in a group. It's really hard for me to speak. It could be a little bit about my background is I grew up with a mom, single mom. She was an alcoholic, drug abuse, and I really struggled taking care of myself a lot of the time. And through that process, I learned survival skills, but a lot of abandonment created a lot of insecurity in me. So these are big steps for me today. And I feel grateful that I can, speak, even if I'm a little nervous. I know my higher power is with me, and it's going to fill me with love. So whatever I say today, I hope inspires you. So yeah, just kind of what Jeff was saying. I met him when I was 17. Very young. I knew right away when we met, I really liked him. He was very different. Like he said, his career was something he was really passionate about. And I love that about him. But quickly I recognized that the alcohol was huge. It was an everyday thing. And I really struggled with that. So I did end up, after 6 months dating him, I'm like, okay, we can't be together. I really like him, but we can't be together. And somehow finding out we lived on the same street when we started dating, he kept driving by that road and he'd blare his music and let me know he was around. And, I think that was a sign that God knew we were supposed to be together. And, 6 months later, we're back together. And that first initial decision, getting back together with him, I thought, you know what, he likes me a lot and I like him a lot, and I'm going to be able to change him. And so that was the first step. I was going to change this guy, and I was going to put him in the image of what I wanted him to be. And so through that time, that didn't really happen. I fought tooth and nail and really continued to fight, saying, if you love me the way you say you do, you change. And he didn't. But I had hope. As Jeff is mentioning, he grew up Catholic home, not really religious. Same concept for me. We didn't attend church. It wasn't a regular thing for our family. My mom has a twin, and her twin lived a couple hours away, and she was very involved and very spiritual. And, at least I had that example every summer when I would go visit. So I kind of longed for that relationship. I was able to see that growing up. So dating Jeff at the time, I thought about those times with my aunt and my uncle and the way they lived and continued to go to church and do those things. And so God was a foundation in my life at a young age. So as I'm saying or mentioning that through this time, I would just continue to go to church, and I would hope that, okay, it's going to change. It's going to change. Well, within this time, we ended up having a child. And, once again, that same road of, okay, now baby's here, I'm ready to nest and change. And so he's going to too. And, that wasn't really the case. Continued to drink, and we fought a lot. And there were moments when I'd step out and stay with family. It was very toxic, a lot of complaining to our family members about each other. And your loving family wants to support you and protect you. And so, they really wanted to keep us separated or help us figure it out, separating. And we knew that we loved each other. We just were not guided with the right people. So, within a year, we ended up getting pregnant again and having our second child. And again, toxic, unhealthy, a lot of fighting. a lot of unknowns. And Jeff ended up getting an opportunity to move to Idaho. And I'm still young. I'm close to 22, and I'm like, okay, let's go, let's move, adventure. If we move, he'll stop drinking, he'll stop gambling, he'll stop the access to all the pills, the drinking. So we moved to Idaho, and sure enough, I thought for sure this was going to be it. This was going to be the change. And it started very quickly. His aunt and uncle welcomed us in their home, and they welcomed alcohol. And so right back to the vicious cycle that I thought would change. There was moments where it was so hard for me, especially being away from all my family. I had called my mom crying, what do I do? And she had somewhere along the road had heard about Al-Anon and had mentioned, go check out Al-Anon. So I did, and it didn't feel right for me at that time. It wasn't a place that I felt comfortable. So I just continued to fight this fight. And through the years, it just continued to become stronger that I was going to leave him. I didn't know what that was going to look like. So I eventually, within a few years living in Idaho, I walked away. It was so hard. I had zero family. I had a friend that was going to let me stay for a couple weeks. Mind you, when we moved to Idaho, we had babies, so I stayed home. But I took that leap of faith, and I stepped away. And in that 6 months, I found myself struggling. I was dropping the kids off with him more often as I'm trying to keep them away from him. And I'm finding myself out trying to numb pain. And so that was about a 6-month period that had happened. Well, he ended up calling me and wanted me back. And I said, okay, well, if you want me back, you have to quit drinking. And he promised, and I think he genuinely wanted to. And so I came back, and it was so amazing. It felt like lusting and love all over again. And within a month, he was right back to drinking again. And so, I fought. I just continued to fight. And it took years. It took many years to watch this journey. And finally, just before he got sober, I decided to attend more Al-Anon meetings, or at least go check out different meetings. And that's really when I got to find boundaries. And, as Jason says, just really focusing on stepping away from the beach and, putting that emotional raincoat. I was still fairly new, so I didn't know what that looked like, but I would get little increments. I would go into these meetings and surround myself with people who were struggling. And I would implement just tiny things every time I'd come home. And it became, I was aware that I was allowing these things to happen. Taking him to the store to get alcohol so that he wasn't drinking and driving, or attending barbecues and driving when I knew that, I was going to be the one driving. Well, I stopped doing these things. I made a decision that was going to be my boundary. And they were small, but they became part of the first steps of allowing my personal separation. Kind of fast forward, once again, throughout this whole time, lots of anger, rage, fighting. Our son, he was young in school. He was struggling in school. There was so much pain in our home, and I wanted to hide all the time. So I constantly take the kids to do stuff just to get away. Finally, it got to the point where it was, I think, the last straw. And he made a decision to go to Brick House. And at that moment, I was already checked out. I was done. I was ready to let this go. But if there's one thing that I can say is, I kept my faith, and I made a decision to attend church and really ask my higher power. I just want to live for your will. Whatever your will be done is what this process is going to look like. And I really prayed that genuinely, between that and the serenity prayer, while he was in his darkest moments and making that decision to get help. And I just remember him coming into a space where he was ready. And I was still broken. I felt a lot of pain, and I had my guards up. But I still stayed in the home praying continuously of whatever the will, if it's God's will, then it'll be an open door to move, or whatever that was going to look like. And it seemed that I was supposed to stay, and I was supposed to let him figure out this process on his own. And I'm so grateful, because once again, I had more opportunity to go to more meetings as Jeff was in his recovery, and really learn some more tools. And I ended up finding myself a sponsor, and I was able to work the 12 steps. And through that process, I really recognized that I could find myself and look at me and stop focusing so much on him, and allowing the emotional raincoat to do its work. And even though I was in a lot of anger, I was and checked out, I was able to allow that to keep me separated from what he was doing, not focusing on, are you going to your meetings? What are you doing? But just being free at allowing the process. And that part, was very hard, and it was a long process. We're drawing this out years. And kind of looking at what's happening now, or at least within the past 2 years, him being sober, like he said, it really wasn't a big change. There's still a lot of anger and fear. And one thing I can say is that we were seeking for counsel, and as Jeff had called it, leveling up. And I was ready for that, because I knew there was just some missing pieces. And so we ended up taking that opportunity, and we've been in recovery we've been in marriage counseling for a couple of years now. And there's been so much growth, and really connection, understanding each other, allowing for Jeff to be who he is as an individual. I think being a codependent and recognizing that I had this image of growing up with a mom that, made her decisions, that I was going to grow up and that those decisions were not going to happen. My life was going to be completely different. I was going to have that white picket fence, and that's not reality. That's not truth. But I was determined. I was determined to make that part of my life. And, through this process, I've recognized that I in order to have that white picket fence, it's inside me. It's not outside, and that's the strongest, most powerful thing that I've recognized in this whole journey, is that I stopped focusing on all these things that I thought the world, or how do I say this? I stopped focusing on what I thought the world needed to see of me, and I started to focus on what I felt I needed to heal inside of me. And that journey has been so powerful to recognize that, today I can look at my husband and I love him genuinely. I deeply love him. And, recognizing that I'm able to not carry resentments and have more peace, and look at myself and say, you know what? Jeff isn't going to make that different about me. I'm going to make that different about me. And it just really gives me time to focus on myself. And, we mesh so well together, but we're two individual people who like to do different things. And I think before it used to be, we go to these gatherings and I'd be like, oh, Jeff is acting this way. That's a reflection of me. But today I can look at life and say, no, that's just him. That's who he is. And I am who I am. And I can separate us and still know that we are two joined together. And that's really powerful for me, because the fear and the insecurities have always made me believe that we had to be this image. And that's been really helpful. It really starts with me, and finding my self-worth and recognizing. I've always looked to my husband for answers. Well, I grew up not understanding this, and I don't know how to speak this way. Help me, send this email, do this. And now I'm recognizing that I am enough. I can send that email, and I can do these things on my own. It might have to work a little harder, but I'm capable. And that's a freeing feeling that I don't rely on him to find my self-worth. And I think for so long, I took all my self-worth and everything in me to focus on him, to help him, that I never knew who I really was. And so these steps in my own recovery has been who I am as a person. What do I stand for? What are my values? What do I want in my life? Which is so cool, because I stopped focusing on him. And this is where our relationship is coming together, is that I have my ambitions and my goals and what I want to focus on, and he has his. And, it's so easy. For me personally, growing up, it was always, don't be selfish, think of others first. And those were so embedded in my mind that it's like, in my mind, I'd think, well, why is my husband out doing this when he should be with us and the kids and doing this? But now I've recognized that he gets to have his relationship with his kids the way he's going to have his relationship. And I get to have my relationship with my kids the way I'm going to have my relationship. And it doesn't mean he's a bad person. It's just the way he connects with them. And I have to remind myself that just because I come from a single mom without a dad, that I don't have to put him on a pedestal to be this perfect father for our children, because I didn't have that. My kids see their dad a different way. And it took me so many years to understand that. My sponsor would tell me, she'd say, Bree, do you think your daughter or your son looks at your husband the way that you imagine it to look? And that hit me hard. I was like, wait a minute, wait, what? Like, no, he needs to be this way, because I never had that. But through this process and really the tools and healing internally, I recognized that that's so true. I don't have to micromanage anybody. I don't have to micromanage him. I don't have to micromanage our kids and what it needs to look like. I just need to share love and my own healing, because I'm going to show my kids that I am strong. I am independent. I don't need to rely on him. And these are my strong traits that are going to, that my path with my kids are going to look like, And so I feel like I'm kind of rambling, but, these things are so powerful to me, because as I said from the very beginning, my insecurities ran so strong, and finding my self-worth. But that takes the process, the tools, the people. You are the average of the 5 you surround yourself with. And I really didn't take that to heart until I really said, I'm ready to level up myself, because my husband went through this program and he wants to be sober. Like, what kind of person am I if I don't find tools for my own personal journey? Just because I came into it with him having an issue or the addiction doesn't mean that I didn't have my own to begin with. And it's been really healing for me to identify these things and focus on me and know that it's okay. Self-care, self-worth. And I believe that looking at that today has helped our relationship grow stronger, because I was so good at the checklist. Man, I had a checklist for days. And now I can look at him and say, I don't need to check anything. I get to check what I'm doing today. I'm going to wake up and go to work, and I'm going to come home and, get to spend time with my kids and my husband. And that's freeing. It's a very freeing feeling. So yeah, I guess that's kind of where I express. Before, I tried so hard to control, manipulate, guilt trip, all those fear. It's fear-based, right? To recognizing that, okay, I need some tools because it's not working. It's getting worse. Okay, here's some tools. Here's some writing, journaling. Man, it's so hard for me to do those things. But while I was doing my 12 steps, I was journaling and writing every single day. And I guarantee, I know for a fact that God was just, I was just getting fed every day. And through that process, now I can look at our life and say, wow, that hard pain, that guilt, that shame, that emotional roller coaster, and everything I kept praying, please, God, please make this change. It was for me to change. It wasn't for Jeff to change. And it took that much pain to change. It's not about Jeff. It was about me. And I never knew that. And I'm so grateful that I'm hungry to learn, because I would never be the person I'm becoming today. And sorry, I get so emotional about this because it's so real. Like I've lately heard the word abundance, and it's so true. There's so much abundance right now, and I can't describe it. I mean, if you would have met me oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed. I'm dripping here. Sorry. If you would have met me, 5 years ago, I was in a lot of pain, and I truly didn't believe that there was hope, and I was ready to leave, and I was just waiting for the opportunity. And I can look at my husband today and know that I truly love him, and that that there's abundance in all that pain, that roller coaster of emotions and sickness. I feel healing. And our life isn't perfect today. We still have our little ups and downs, but I truly believe that we just keep one step forward, one day at a time. And I truly believe that this is also in preparation of, we have 2 children, and we both have addicts on the both side of our family. And, this process is going to help us for our future. And so, yeah, I'll stop rambling on. Thank you guys so much for letting me share. Thank you for listening. And I hope something touched you that came out. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Bree. Love you too. I wanted to share something I think that was really a big crucial moment in when things started to shift, when she talks about her own journey with her own healing. And there was a moment, it was about 3 years into my sobriety, where we had taken away the glaring defect of alcohol, but there was still so much there. There was still so much unresolved bitterness, resentment, conflict. It was very tense in the home. It was very difficult for both of us. And what I think we later realized, took a long time, but 2 things. It was all about control. So I was trying to control the relationship, that we are going to stay together no matter what, even if it's horrible. And she was trying to say, well, if I leave, then he's not going to be okay. And I got to be here, and I got to stay to save him. I got to make sure that he's going to stay sober. So now I have to stay, because it's up to me to make sure that he stays sober. And that whole control from both sides was just absolutely suffocating us. And I remember she came back from a trip with some friends, And she walked up to me, and this is, I mean, we're talking about 3 years into my recovery sobriety. She said, I don't think I want to be married anymore. And that hit me completely out of the blue. I was thinking everything was okay. And I said, what are you talking about? You don't want to be married. And, you know, I think she had got to a point where she had been checked out for a long time, and she had finally made a decision. I'm done. I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. And of course that hit me hard. So I took a few days and really just really processed that with some people that are close to me. And I had to come to the conclusion, could I make friends with the worst case scenario? And the worst case scenario was, you know, if we don't stay together, am I going to stay sober? Am I going to be all right? You know, is it going to be okay? And I, with working closely with God, I had made that decision that it was going to be okay. So a few days passed, and I went up to her and I just said, hey, you know, you do whatever you need to do, and I want you to know that I'm going to be all right, no matter what. Like, if you need to leave, I understand, and I'm going to be okay. And I think that really released a lot of the constant need to control. And I feel like that might have been a moment that kind of freed her up to go, okay, like, it's not up to me, you know, and my own peace and my own happiness is up to me to figure that out, and it's not up to him. And so that was a big moment. You know, since then we have done a lot of counseling, a lot of therapy, and there's a lot to our story that we didn't share today. But you know, I think if anything, to me, that's where we really started to begin to experience a shift, is when we both stopped trying to control the things that we can't control and just really look within ourselves and go, okay, the outcome is not, that's not what we need to be focusing on. We have no control over the outcome. It's going to be what it is. But if we continue on this constant, I need to fix him or save him, or I need to keep her in my life at all costs, or I'm going to drink again. I mean, that wasn't serving us. And so when we were finally able to let that go, things started to shift. So definitely, I know we went long, but want to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions, or, you know, any of that for either one of us. And thank you for joining us today for this opportunity.
Really quickly, before we open it up, I just want to say this. Jeff and I signed up to do this. This is what we do for a living. This is, you know, we spend our days telling our story and pouring into other people. But Bree, I just want to honor what you did today, because I pulled this quote up, by the way, when you were talking, and it says, courage is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to act in the presence of fear. And that just kept coming to me today. And I want to honor you, because just if you listen to the chats today, the impact that the two of you have together. I've heard Jeff's story, you know, lots of times as we've been able to do this work together, but the power of the two of you sitting here today and openly and lovingly share your individual experiences through this disease. I just want to honor you. I want to honor you both. But like I said, Jeffrey signed up for this. So I just want to honor what you did today.
Thank you, Jen.
And with that, does anybody have any questions? I know we've got a few minutes. Whether you have questions about anything, really. I mean, obviously, we'd love for you to be able to pick Bree and Jeff's brain, but if there's any thoughts about anything, really, please, let's open it up.
Hi, I'm Anne. I just wanted to quickly, I don't really have any questions. Well, I've got a ton of questions, but thank you, both of you. I've just got so much out of it. Bree, thank you for telling us what it's been like for you. Your words just resonated in me, and thank you for just saying all of that. It meant so much to me. And coming from the Al-Anon part, I'm somewhat new to Al-Anon. I'm on my third step, but you've incentivized me to keep going. Thank you.
And I had a follow-up question for Bree. You did talk about the 12-step program. Was that through AA or through Al-Anon?
That was through Al-Anon.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And do you have a sponsor?
I do.
Oh,
I
good.
do. Yes.
Good.
Working, reaching for personal freedom. So I just have to keep plugging away.
Good.
Thank you.
Proud of you. Good job.
I was just going to say that a part that lots of parts of what you said really resonated with me. It's super helpful to hear from spouses or significant others of those going through this same process. So this is all very, very new for me, really. I didn't grow up around any addictions or anything. I actually grew up in a fairly religious environment. And, I met Skylar 2 years ago. We've been together just over 2 years. We actually have a 1-year-old baby, very, very similar in that 6 months into our relationship, we were expecting. And it's just been something that we have almost just like trudged through, which is really sad and unfortunate to feel like that's our relationship, and that's been bringing a little life into things. But we both adore him, and he is a light in our life right now. We're very new in the whole brick house process. Skylar has had a history with drug and alcohol abuse for 17 years, but and been to multiple rehabs. I, like you, felt like maybe I was meant to be the one to help him change and overcome. I'm pretty good at boundaries. I have built 2 successful businesses. I'm very independent. I'm the financial provider in our home. Like, I really don't have as much of like the, so I felt like I was really strong, and maybe that's what my partner needed to be able to overcome this. And to be honest, so he has been sober for just over 30 days, and he's new in the brick house program, and I'm kind of scared to death, I'm not gonna lie, because as this stuff is unfolding, I feel this fear of kind of just what a big demon he's been battling for so long. And I don't know that anyways, it's just scary because there's lots of unknowns, and I feel like you and Jeff were saying, it's not just the alcohol. The alcohol is definitely still a thing when it's a thing. But I'm recognizing that there's years and years and years of self-loathing and self-worth issues and manipulation and just addictive behaviors, right, that come with addiction. They learn these behaviors of how they interact with people on an everyday basis, and it's scary because I feel like it honestly is opening up a bigger hole of trust issues, recognizing how much there's a history of just manipulation or deceit or whatever it is, that it's oh my gosh, I don't know, it's just scary to feel this is going to be, I feel like this is going to be a long journey, and I don't know, scary.
Can I say something really quickly about what you just shared? Oh my gosh, sorry. Because I think it is so important and I don't want to gloss over it. I think so many of us that have loved ones that are addicts, we want them desperately to the core of our soul to get sober. Desperately. But there is this fear inside of us that we have no idea what this is going to look like when they get sober. And if you've ever heard me talk about my family or addicts in general, right, I always talk about the dynamics of an addicted family as a dance. And I refer to it as the waltz. So if you can envision being on a dance floor with your entire family just waltzing, and how beautiful that waltz is, right? Everybody has been doing it for a long time. They're very comfortable with the waltz. It comes very naturally, and everyone is just beautifully dancing together. And then Skylar gets sober. And in his sobriety and in his recovery, people are teaching him how to tango. So now if you can visualize on a dance floor, everybody's waltzing and Skylar's tangoing. And there's a lot of confusion and a lot of running into each other and a lot of people trying to convince him that if he would just waltz, we could all just do this very beautifully again. And there's fear in that. There's fear in what does it look like as he tangos and the rest of us waltz. I can tell you long-term, what has worked for me and my family is that they had to learn something different and I had to learn. We now do a combination of waltz and tango that is unique to my family. We do it together and it looks quite beautiful. But in the beginning, to say that it was something other than a shit show would be a lie to you. And a lot of fear around everybody having, I'm like, no, I'm tangoing. That's what I'm learning. That's what people around me are telling me to do. I don't care if you like it or not. This is what's healthy. I'm in a tango. And my husband saying, what are you talking about? We've been waltzing for 20 years. So I want to honor your fear and recognize your fear. And I think every single person on this call that has a family that is a loved one that's an addict has that. There's this fear of, I want them to get sober, but what the hell is that going to look like? And what is that going to mean for me? And what are the demons that are going to come out? And what am I going to have to deal with that is really just easier almost if they stay an addict? That's what our subconscious mind says. So I don't want to gloss over that today because I think it is so important to recognize it as normal and to recognize it as safe and part of the process. And that those of us that have been doing this for a longer period of time will tell you that's really what Bree and Jeff's story was today, right? They were waltzing, wasn't working. He learned to tango, still wasn't working. There was things, and then they learned their individual dance together.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely 100%. And, I think about it as, someone loves wearing black every single day. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, you've been wearing black for years. And then you just start putting a little hint of color in. And it's like, oh, this isn't me. This feels weird. But through the time you start saying, but I want to be colorful, and that's where you start, like the analogy of the dance. It's like you start to recognize like, okay, well, I got to focus on my boundary and okay, this is working this way. And you just keep putting in a little color at a time. And it starts to, you start to tango and you waltz all at the same time. So it's a process. And as Jen said, like honor it because it is a fearful based feeling. And I've been through it for years. But you'll start to just trust the process and trust yourself to say, okay, I might not have done it right today, but I can do it again differently tomorrow. And give yourself grace for that. Because I know there was many times where I thought to myself, oh, I yelled at him. I freaked out on him. But tomorrow I'm going to do it differently. And so, once again, it puts focus on you. So you stop focusing on them. And that was really helpful for me. So anyways, I just wanted to add that too.
I struggle with becoming like more of the like avoidant, detached avoidant like style, like as I feel like I just focus on me. Like I'm pretty good at just focusing on me, but then I'm like go into this like detached avoidant style, attachment style, which is also like, I don't know, I have a hard time between that like confident attachment style and that detached avoidant style, like when I'm going through this.
So like Bree just said, I think one of the things that as you go through this, that you just need to have some grace on yourself, right? Some of that is really natural to go back and in between those relationships and the way that you're feeling. And so the grace that you give yourself is neither of them are wrong and neither of them are right. They are just your truth in that moment. And so as you guys go through this process, super early in the process, it's going to be very fluid, and you're going to go back and forth, especially until there's a lot more stability in your relationship. So give yourself some grace.
Thank you.
And just one more thing too, giving yourself some grace, and then, you'll recognize as everything takes time that you'll start saying, oh, wow, I didn't do it this way, and give yourself pat yourself, like be proud of the process because you learn from it, this is, it's a storm and it hurts and it's painful and you're like, please, it's going to flood. But when you recognize like, wow, I scooped out all the water in the living room. Like, be proud of those moments because it's helpful for the journey too. And I know this is kind of far-fetched from maybe the moment you're in right now, but you got to find grace and you got to find the gratitude in yourself of, wow, I did that today, and those are the moments where you'll say, wow, I'm changing the way I'm thinking, right?
Thank you.
All right, you guys, we're out of time, but I just, again, thank you, Jeff and Bree, for coming on here and being vulnerable and sharing your story and pouring into people that are just starting this journey when you guys have been on it for a hot second. So I love you both so much. And next week, Jason will be here. I'm hoping to also be here. I know that we are in the next couple of months starting to work on surrender, which I think all of us can continue to use in this journey, whether we have loved ones that are addicts or not. So I love you all, and I hope to see you all next week.